Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Maseches ARACHIN, Daf Yud. We begin at the Mishnah, which is 4 lines from the top. So back to the minimum and maximum in terms of numbers of all different stripes and types and hair goes. It's about the instruments, and it's about the blowing, it's about the singing in the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Mishnah, Ein poichsen, we do not have less, meaning there is no day throughout the year that they will have less than 21 blows. So we're speaking about what kind of blows? We're speaking about blowing the chatzotres, those trumpets that they would blow during various times throughout the day, when they opened the gates, when they were doing the karbanos, right? So at a minimum, it's going to be 21 blows that the Kehanim would blow these trumpets 21 times in the Beis HaMikdash. And the cap, the max, is no more than al arba'im v'shmoina, 48 blows. And this was reserved for special occasions, like on Sukkos, when they had the extra karbanos, they had the pouring of the water. So minimum is 21, maximum 48. Now what about the instruments that were used? How many were there? Ein poichsen mishnei nevolim. So navel, some say is some sort of wind instrument, some say it's like a string instrument. No less than 2 were used in the symphony, played during the singing of the Shira, which happened when they would bring the karbanos, pour the wine, right? So no less than 2 of these instruments were played. Ein poichsen mishnei nevolim, and at a maximum it would be 6. No more than 6. And Rashi says, I'm not sure, I'm not sure about the significance of these numbers. Ein poichsen mishnei chalilin. Now chalil is a flute, no less than 2. They wouldn't add more than 12. More than 12. And Rashi actually says that 12 here has significance because he says Keneged Yud Beis Yomim. It corresponds to the number 12 days. Shachalal makel f'nei that they would actually use and play the chalal. It was called makeh, bang, the tap, meaning like you tap it with your fingers. So 12 corresponded to that number, which was the maximum amount. As the Mishnah continues, in fact, it was 12 days throughout the year that they would add the chalil to the band, which played all the time when they brought karbanis. But 12 days a year was unique, where they had the chalil join the orchestra. Chalil makaf mizbeach. It would play before the mizbeach when the Levim sang the Hallel, which was specific to those 12 days. We'll see later in the Gemara exactly which days they are. So in addition to the standard or instead of the regular shir, they sang the Hallel on account of those special celebratory occasions, and they had the Chalal join the orchestra. Which 12 days? B'shchita Pesach Rishon, when they shechted the Korban Pesach the first time around on Yudal ben Nisan, so they would recite the Hallel when they would do the Shchita, and the music accompanied the Hallel. B'shchitas Pesach Sheni, and the second time around as well for the people who were delayed, right? The Yudal de Be'ir. So again, during the Shchita, there was this orchestra playing B'yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, on the first day of Pesach, on Rishon Shel Atzeres, and on Shavuos, Vashmoinas Mi'achag, and throughout all 8 days of Sukkos, for a total of 12 days. But otherwise, throughout the year, Levim would play a very nice orchestra, a very nice symphony, but it was without the chalal, which was unique to these special days. Now, speaking about the chalal, they wouldn't use a metal, a copper flute. Ela ba'avav, here the Mishnah calls it an abav. Chalal and abav are one and the same. Ela ba'avav shalkana was made of wood. It was a reed type of flute, which had a very unique, sweet sound to it. Because the sound produced by this old-time reed flute was very sweet and pleasant. Lo haya machlik. And in fact, the flute performed the final note, right? The finale at the end. Machlik means it ended the music. Elab avav yechidi. So even though he had several, flutes playing at once, but at the very end, they allowed just a single flute to give that last note. Because that really has a nice end sound to it. Now, who would play the chalilim? They were the avodim. Interesting, it was the servants of the kohanim. Maybe they had extra time to study this difficult instrument, so they sent them for music lessons, and they would come and play the flute. Divir Meir. Rabbi Yisrael, no, it was Yisraelim who were miyuchasim, who had a properly established lineage. Mishpachas Beis Pegorim, that family. Ubeis Tziporaya, this other family. And they came from the town of Ammon. Me'ammon hayu. Masin l'kuhuna. What was unique about these families is that they were well established in their yichus, and they would actually marry into Kohanim families. They were Yisraelim, but they were miyuchasim. Rabbi Chanina Tignus Omer, actually, just as the rest of the instruments were played by Leviim, was their task, was their job. So the Chalilim were also handled by Leviim only, Leviim hayu, not Yisraelim, and certainly not Avodim. The Gemara later will explain, the reasoning behind the machlekes. Okay, but let's first start with the beginning of the Mishnah. How many times would they blow the chatzaitres? No less than 21. It was capped at 48. Now, in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda says he cuts it by 2/3. He says it's from 7 to 21 to 16, which is exactly a third. 7 1/3 of 21, and he maximizes at 16, which is a third of 48. Masnis now Mishnah, which cites 21 verses 48, like Rabbi Yehuda, unlike Rabbi Yehuda, who says it's 7 verses 16. At a minimum, you go to 7 blows. At a maximum, it's 16. So, interestingly, when we speak about a blow in the Mikdash, it was really a set, like we do on Rosh Hashanah, right? We have the broken sound in the middle, preceded by a long unbroken, and followed by a long unbroken. It was a tkiya, true tkiya. So technically, only do that, but since we're not sure exactly how to configure that broken sound, is it shvarim, is it true, is it shvarim true? That's how we get into so many multiple variations of blowing on Rosh Hashanah, but technically, it's really just one set. Which you blow, and that does it, right? So you blow it, 3 of those sets. But in any case, the multiplication is because of the unknown. In anyways, but it's meant to be blown as a set. The question now is, when we blow a set, does it count as one single entity? Is the package called one mitzvah, or is it 3 separate mitzvahs? The tkiya, the true, the tkiya, does it count separate or as one? Says the Gemara, so that will explain what the machlek is about. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, tkiya true, tkiya achasi. He says this set, a tkiya, then a true, a tkiya followed by a tkiya at the end, is really chadi. It's one single entity. It's one mitzvah, so it counts as one. So that's how 21 turns into 7. It's 21 separate blows, but it's really 7 sets. Rabbanan Sabri, Rabbanan say it's 3 separate experiences, 3 separate mitzvahs, therefore count separately. That's how you get to the higher number. Rabbanan Sabri, Tkiya, L'chud, Tkiya is a separate blow. Utrua, the broken one in the middle is L'chud, stands alone. Tkiya L'chud, the one at the end, counts separately as well. My time to Rabbi Yehuda, why does Rabbi Yehuda consider them to be one mitzvah? Ksiv, because if you look in the Psukim, where it speaks about blowing the trumpets when they travel in the Midbar, you see that the term Tekiah and Teruah are interchangeable. Apparently, it's really one and the same entity. It's one and the same experience. It's got them Teruah, Tekiah, Teruah. Then it says Uksiv, Teruah, the Teruah Yitko, they will blow the Teruah. So we're sort of mixing Teruah and Tekiah and Teruah together to tell you, Shemamina, we learn from here, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah, achadahi. That it's really all one and the same, whether it's a tkiya, the trua tkiya, it's all one entity. So even though it's three sounds, it counts as one. For Rabbanan respond, no. Pasuk doesn't mean it's one mitzvah. The pasuk is simply presenting the sequence of how it's meant to be done. First a tkiya, and then a trua, right? It got him trua. Then it goes the other way, trua yitku, to tell you that the trua is followed by a tkiya. It's just meant to sequence the order of sounds. Rabbanan hu lefshuta lefanav, to teach you a long uninterrupted sound before the broken one. Upshuta, and a long uninterrupted tkiya lacharev follows the broken one. Also, that's what's coming to teach us. But of course, in terms of counting it, they're separate blows and separate mitzvahs. Okay, so we have Rabbi Yehuda's source and the Rabbanan's response. Now, for the Rabbanan's reasoning, for Rabbanan Maitamai, what do Rabbanan consider them to be separate? The pasuk says when they summoned the nation together, they weren't traveling, just summoning them together. The ubahakil, the pasuk instructs, ubahakil es hakol, when you gather together the crowd, tisku, you simply do a tkiya, just one tkiya v'lo turi, without a trua. So unlike when they travel, that it was three sounds, it was just a single sound. Apparently, a single sound can stand alone, because really each sound is a separate experience. If you're going to tell me that the tkiya with the trua, with tkiya is really one, chadi is one experience, is one mitzvah, amar achmana avid palgad mitzvah. So now the Torah would tell you do only half a mitzvah? Just a tkiya, if it's only half the experience? Rabbi Yehuda, he responds, of course, all three have one mitzvah. Simana ba'almahu. But here it's different than the other sounding, the other blows, which are mitzvahs. Here it's just a simon, it's just a signal to call them in together. And it doesn't really require a proper procedure, the full package, which is really one inseparable mitzvah. Now we have a statement by Rav Kahana, and we'd like to know whose opinion, whose shita does it follow? Does it follow Rabbi Yehuda, who considers all three as one mitzvah, or the Rabbanan, that it's separate mitzvahs? Come on, Azla. Hadam Rav Kahana. We'd like to know Rav Kahana's halacha. Who does it follow? What does he say? Ein ben tkiya l'trua v'lo klum. So, between the tkiya and the trua, there isn't meant to be any pause. V'lo klum, no pause at all. Some learn it has to be within the same breath. Some say that it has to be, close enough, but you can catch a breath in between. Okay, in any case, very, very close to each other. Come on, Rabbi Yehuda. Apparently it's like Rabbi Yehuda, that it's one mitzvah, hence, no pausing. In contrast to Rabbanan, who shouldn't have an issue with separating them. They're separate mitzvahs anyway. Oh, pshita, obviously, it's going like Rabbi Yehuda. I mean, what's the point of mentioning? Obviously. Perhaps this halacha follows the Rabbanan as well, who allow you to pause. And that's not what he meant to say. He just meant to say, don't disperse it throughout the day. Lapukim Rabbi Yechon, as opposed to Rabbi Yechon, who allows us to blow the 9 blows that we blow in Rosh Hashanah 1 an hour. You could do it throughout the whole day. Lapukim Rabbi Yechon, the Amar who says, Shama Tesha Tkiyos, but Tesha Shoyes B'yem Yatza. Suppose he spread them out. He heard there's 9 sounds, which you are required to hear in Rosh Hashanah. Right, the tkiya, trua, tkiya 3 times over. Total of 9, 1 per hour. But Tesha Shas B'yem Yatza, okay, and perhaps he's coming to dispute that. Meaning, even according to Rabbanan, that they're separate mitzvahs, but too far apart. It's too far apart. Kamashmon, and that's why we had to clarify that. In fact, his point was don't pause at all, which only works according to Rabbi Yehuda. That's one inseparable mitzvah. Maybe not. Maybe he was allowing a pause. Just don't disperse it. Look at his wording. He says, don't separate them without any separation. That sounds like it's one continuum, one experience, which is like Rabbi Yehuda only. The Mishnah continued. What about the chalal, this flute? When did it join the band? Only during those 12 special days. The question is, what's unique about those special days? Why these days more than any other? These were extra days of celebration, where even a yachid, a private person, would recite the full halal on account of the occasion, the Yom Tov, the Karbanos, and the Nisim, right? And Tosfos points out, Tosfos Bracha says that when the Gemara says yachid, it doesn't mean as opposed to the people in shul. It means to say as opposed to the, those days where it was a full collective Klal Yisrael experience, like the Erev Pesach, when they had the Shechita of the Karban Pesach, Beis Hamikdash, everyone together, Klal Yisrael together recited. He was speaking about individuals, meaning, all of Klal Yisrael in their shuls, in sort of, each one in his own setting, would recite the full halal. So those special days were days that likewise in the Mikdash were celebrated in a special way. They would bring the special instrument to play along. Now, which days are days of halal? And these correspond to the days mentioned in the Mishnah as well. So he tells us actually it's 18 in total, but we'll see in a minute, 8 of them are Chanukah, which is not really relevant to the Beis Hamikdash because there was no karbanis, special karbanis for Chanukah. So we deduct from the 18, we deduct 8. So only 10 are really relevant for Beis Hamikdash, plus the 2 that we mentioned in the Mishnah, the Shechita of the Karban Pesach Rishon and again Karban Pesach Sheni. So that's for a total of 12. That gets you to the magic number. There were a total of 18 days annually. Shayachid, Gomer, Ben Sahal, that we all recite the full halal. Now this is as opposed to some days where we only do part halal, like Rosh Chodesh. Those are minhag. It's a minhag to, it's not, the basic halacha, which pertains only to these 18 days. So again, Shmoyne Asr Yom Sheyachid Yom Sahalal. The 18 are as follows: Shmoyne Yimei Chag, the 8 days of Sukkos. Shmoyne Min Chanukah, 8 days of Chanukah. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, first day of Pesach. Yom Tov Shel Atzeres and Shavuos. So it's 18. In the Mikdash, Chanukah was not really relevant. There was no special carbon on Chanukah, so goes down to 10 plus those 2 days, Erev Pesach Rishon V'Sheni. That explains the number 12, where the Chalal will join the ranks. Ubagoyla, and outside Eretz Yisrael, where they would observe an extra day Yom Tov on account of the uncertainty, so it actually bumps it up from 18 to 21 days, because you have a longer Pesach, a longer Sukkot, a longer Shavuos. Esrim Ve'echad, 21 days in total, where you say the full Halal. Tishrei Me'echad, 9 days of Sukkot, Shmoyne Chanukah, 8 days of Chanukah, U'shnei Yom Tov Mishal Pesach, the first 2 days of Pesach, Shnei Yom Tov Mishal Atzeres, and 2 days of Shavuos. Ask the Gemara. Now, why do we find this discrepancy? Ma'ishna b'chag. Why is it that on Sukkot, Amrin Kol Yoma, as we just saw, every single day earns its full halal? Well, Ma'ishna Pesach le'amrinan, as opposed to Pesach, where it's limited to the first day or 2 days. We don't say Kol Yoma. Return to says the Gemara. You know why? Because the difference in the karbanis, the chag, because on Sukkot, which is called chag, chaluk and karbanis sand, there are different numbers, different configurations of karbanis. Every single day has its own celebration, its own unique arrangement of karbanis. So that's reflected by the, separate halal that we say every day, as opposed to the Pesach. On Pesach, it's all one and the same. It's just a replication every day, the same thing. So it's lacking that, independence and uniqueness. The Pesach ain't chalukim karbanis saying there's no differentiation in the numbers of karbanis. Hence, we only say the halal one time on account of the full Yom Tov. Asks the Gemara, okay, if that's the criteria that it has to have a new type of karbanis, Shabbos. What about Shabbos? Every week, the chalukah b'karbanis seah, its karbanis are very different than the weekday karbanis. Lema, why not recite the halal? The answer is there's another element that's required. It has to be mayed. It has to be an occasion which is labeled as mayed, like a Yom Tov. Well, Ikri mayed, Shabbos doesn't have that designation. What about Rosh Chodesh? The Ikri mayed, which is called mayed, Rashi brings a pasuk, Karelai mayed. Lema. So how about reciting the full halal? Right? We do it today, but it's only on account of a minhag. We don't even do the full halal. Full halal should be required. It's a mayed. It has new karbanis. Lema. Well, lo yigdish b'asiyas malacha. Actually, there's another precondition. there has to be a mitzvah to refrain from doing mundane work. You have to be in a state of elevation, a purely spiritual realm, in order to spring forth with the recitation of thanksgiving of Hallel. So basically 3 conditions: unique karbanos, moyed, and kadosh b'asiyas malacha. How do we know that that's a precondition as well? The Chsiv, we have a pasuk where Yeshaya Hanavi, he says the nevuah about the geula, the redemption that they'll, salvation that they'll experience there, and he says, "Hashir yilachem," you'll be in such a state of song, kilelis kadesh chag, just like the song that you sing forth on the night that is Kaddish, the night of Yom Tov, the night of Pesach. We learn Laila Mekudash L'Chag Ton Shir, only a night, only a time where it's Mekudash L'Chag, where there is holiness and separation from the mundane. When there's no malacha, that is a Ton Shira, that requires Shira that is appropriate for Shira. However, Laila She'ein Mekudash L'Chag, but if you don't have this extra Kedusha of a Chag, like Rosh Chodesh, which is mutter and to do malacha, and Ton Shira, there's no Shira required. Ask the Gemara, hold up, what about Rosh Hashanah and Kippurim? Those days seem to have all these conditions, all 3 preconditions. V'ikru mayed, v'ikdush masiyas malacha. Right? Firstly, they have new karbanos. Secondly, they're called mayed. In fact, they're listed together with the other, Mayadim, the other Yamim Tovim, and V'igdush B'asiyas Malacha. Of course, you refrain from doing Malacha, Lemos, so they fit the bill. Why not say the full Hallel? Mishum Dar Bavo, on account of Rabbi Yavo, a new reason. Damar Rabbi Yavo, the mood is not right. In fact, the Malachim had the same question. Why are the Bnei Yisrael not calling out in song, singing Hallel on these days? Damar Rabbi Yavo, Amru, Malachi Ashareis, Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachim ask Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the world. Mipnei Ma, why is it so that Ein Yisrael Oimrim Shira Lefanecha? Why is it that Yisrael do not recite Shira before you on these days of judgment? Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim. Amar Lanis, he says to them exactly such. It's Rosh Hashanah, time of judgment, time of Teshuvah. It's a different type of mood. Amar Lehen, Efshar Melach Yeshiv Al Kisi Agdin. Can it be so that a king is sitting on his throne of judgment, judging them life or death? V'sifrei Chaim, v'sifrei Mesim Suchan Lefanov, and he has the books of life and death before him. It's a very precarious situation. Yisrael, you expect the Yidden to get up and say Shira, Imrim Shira Lefanai. It's just it's not a fitting type of setting. The Lashon Rambam is that he says it's a time of tshuva and yira, and that's why we're not expected to say shira on these days. But he says, it's not days of simcha yisera, extra expression of joy. It's made tshuva, v'yira, v'facha, and therefore it's just not, fit for Hallel. Ask the Gemara, v'ho Chanukah, to loy hachi v'loy hachi. But what about Chanukah? We say the full Hallel. It doesn't seem to fit the bill at all. It's not a mayed, established in the Torah, established later by the Chachamim. It's not labeled as a mayed. V'loy hachi, nor do we refrain from doing malacha. And still, V'ka Amar, we say the full Hallel on all 8 days of Chanukah. Says the Gemara, Mishum Nisa, because actually there's another reason to say Hallel. The Gemara back in Pesachim says that the Nevi'im established a system of Hallel. When is Hallel recited? So they give 2 junctures. First of all, Kol Perek, every special, time in the year, right? A Yom Tov, and then Val Kol Tzara V'Tzara, for every salvation, for every redemption. So the Brisker Rav explains that in fact there are two reasons, two systems for saying Hallel. A, during these set days throughout the year, Yom Tovim, right? And then we have something called a Hallel derech shira v'hodah, as an expression of saying thanksgiving. It's a different type of Hallel. He calls the first Kriya. It's like Kriyas HaTorah. You call down the special element of Kedusha that's unique to that day. Right? Just like Kriyas HaTorah, why is it called Kriyas HaTorah? If I thought about it, what Kriya? You're calling the Torah, you're learning, you're reading. Kriya, because there's a light, there's a Kedusha that's already there. You're calling it over to yourself. You're inviting that portion of the Torah and its Kedusha that it represents into your life, into your day, into your occasion. So you read that portion of the Torah that contains that specific Kedusha, that specific hashpah, that specific light that's appropriate for that day. That's why we read certain things on Yom Tov, certain things on Shabbos. Each thing as appropriate for that setting. That's one element of Hallel, which has sort of a permanence. It's set to those days, the 14 days, the 18 days, right? But then we have something called a Hallel, which he says is a shira hodah. It's an expression of song and thanksgiving on account of a nes. That's the second part of Hallel. That's shira. It's coming from us, so to speak. It's an expression of joy, sort of clinging upward, right? We're sort of elevating ourselves to Hashem. We're not calling down something that's already existing, some hashpah, right? As the first type of Kriyas Hallel. Here it's derech shira, says the Brisker Rav. And that corresponds to the second track that we say the Hallel kol tzara v'tzara, when there's salvation, when there's a nes. Hence, we say it on Hanukkah as well, M'Shem Nisa. Okay, so even though it's not on account of the, uniqueness of the day, so to speak, that there's a, Kedusha v'asiyas malacha, that it's a mayed, that relates to the first element of Hallel, Kriyas Hallel. You're calling down the Ashpah appropriate for that day. But when there's a special nes, and even throughout the generations, right? There's a huge nes that the Chachamim will determine that it's significant enough to warrant a Hallel. Then there's a chiv to say Hallel, right? Now we're not big enough to determine today, so we just stick to the true and tried, right? The Chanukah, the Purim. But according to Brisker Rav, it's a new element of Hallel. It's called Hallel on account of a nes, derech shira. Ask the Gemara, okay, so then Purim, why not Purim? You experienced a pretty big miracle on Purim, right? Purim Dika Nisa, we all saved from Haman, right? Lema, why don't we say Hallel? Amar B'Yitzchak, so we have three answers. First of all, he says that happened outside Eretz Yisrael. We do not recite Shira Hallel on a miracle that occurred outside Eretz Yisrael. Explains the Maharsha. The reason is because the Nisim that we experienced in Eretz Yisrael were done directly by Hashem, without emissaries, without malachim, getting the sort of carrying it out, as opposed to Chutz La'aretz, which is a more indirect system, so it doesn't evoke the same expression, the same reaction, the same Hallel. Maskav Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Haritzias Mitzrayim. We say Hallel there. The nation of Chutz La'aretz who happened outside Eretz Yisrael. I mean, Hallel, we still say Hallel. Now, Torah even asks, what do you mean? The Hallel on Pesach, I thought it was the first type of Hallel, the Kriyas Hallel. Yom Tov, Mayed, Karbanis. He says the Gemara's kasha is not on the regular Hallel, it's on the Hallel that we say at night, the night of Pesach, which, again, according to the Brisker Rav, corresponds to the second type of Hallel, the Shira, the sing-song Hallel. That's triggered by a nes, by a miracle, that's to commemorate the miracle, the Hatzalah, the salvation. Hence the question. But it wasn't Chutz La'aretz. The answer to that is, says the Gemara Kedesanya, the answer is contained in the Braisa. Before and after. Before we enter Eretz Yisrael, at that point, perhaps the point is that at that point we had very direct hashpah from Hashem, as though we were in Eretz Yisrael. So at that point, pre-entry, so any miracle that occurred in any land, even outside Yisrael, was enabled for Shira. But once Mishanichus La'aretz, when we enter Eretz Yisrael, the system changed. So only a nes of Eretz Yisrael will trigger the shira, but not outside Eretz Yisrael. Rav Nachman Amar, I'll tell you why. We do say Hallel actually on Purim. Kriyasa Zuha Leila, the reading of the Megillah, reciting of the story and the Nes, that is our expression of thanksgiving. That's tantamount to Hallel. Rav Amar, third teretz, why there's no Hallel on Purim? It doesn't fit with the content of Hallel. Bishlei Mahasam, certainly regarding, Mitzrayim, we thank Hashem, Hallelu, Avdei Hashem, right? Servants of Hashem, Avdei Paroi, who are no longer subservient to Paroi. So it makes sense. But Hacha, here by Purim, what are we going to say? Hallelu Avdei Hashem, Avdei Achashverosh? Praise Hashem, the Avodim Hashem, who are now free from Achashverosh. It's not so. We were still under his rule. Akati, true, their lives were saved, but Akati still, Avdei Achashverosh was still the servants of Achashverosh, so it's not a fitting expression. Question, why not Hallel on Purim? Number one, it was outside Eretz Yisrael. Number two, there is. It's the Megillah. Number three, it doesn't fit with the content. Now, Rav Nachman, the Amar, Kriyasa, Zuha Leila, according to Rav Nachman, the second teretz, that actually the Kriyas HaMegillah is in lieu of Hallel. How does he, what does he do with that Brisa? That the Hallel is only meant for a Nes in Eretz Yisrael. Hatani, we learned the Brisa. Mishenichnos la'aretz, once we enter Eretz Yisrael, lehuchshiru kol ha'aretz islam ha'shira. You can no longer say Shira on a Nes that occurs outside Eretz Yisrael. So why would you say Shira on Purim? Kivin Shagol, the answer is once we were exiled, Chazru, Rishon, once they left Eretz Yisrael, they went back and reverted to the earlier system. And the again, because the Mashal explains, because once we're in Golus, so the Shechina comes along. Okay, so once again we have that direct. We maintain that direct connection with Hashem, direct relationship, even though we're in a different location. Okay, so basically they had the Shira in the Beis Hamikdash during the Karbonos, specifically during the pouring of the wine, together with the Karbonos Tzibur. They had a whole Levim choir with an orchestra. And there were specific times throughout the year when they had special performance on account of these special occasions, which corresponded to those days that we say, that today we say the full Hallel, on account of the special Karbonos, special day designation, with a Mayed, without Malacha. What about Chanukah? Because of the Nes. What about Purim? Perhaps the Megillah is the Hallel, or perhaps there's no Hallel, because of the reasons mentioned. Mishnah began with a reference to a chalal, this flute, and later on it describes it as not being copper, rather it was made of reed because it had sweet sound. So we switched our reference from chalal to avav. Is it the same thing? Pasach b'chalal, Masayim b'avav. We start referring to it as a chalal, then we call it an avav. Marapapa, it's the same thing. Hainu chalal, hainu avav. V'amakar lechalal. So avav was the later new name. Why was it still called a chalal? The chalal, chali kale. Chali, Rashi says in his Masik, it has a sweet sound. And that's why it's called chalal. Tana Rabbanan. For some more background on this instrument, Tana Rabbanan, avav hayi b'mikdash. So there was this avav in the mikdash, this flute, which was from way back in time, from time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Chalal kaya, it was smooth, without any, peel. Da kaya. So the reed was very thin and produced this very nice, thin, sweet sound. Shekana haya, made of reed, right? Umi mais Moshe haya, was still from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now later on, they felt, piece of wood to make it look elegant, fancy, right? Gold-plated. So in fact, Vatziva HaMelech, there's actually another girsa, V'koilei arev, and a very sweet, pure voice, pure sound. Vatziva HaMelech V'tzipu Zav, the king told them to gold-plate it, thinking that it would enhance, it would look nicer. Yeah, it was nicer, but it didn't have that same sweet sound. Not lo tzipuyai, until they removed the plating. Luckily, they were able to do that. And went back to its original sweet sound. A similar story happened with the tzoltzol, this cymbal, right? The clanging, plates. CYMY, symbol. So once again, they try to tinker with it. Tziltzal even English on the Chosher side, there was this old tziltzal made of copper. But you call it a very sweet, beautiful sound. V'nifkam, it got a bit chipped. And Tosfos explains, of course, they could still use it, but they figured they'll fix it up. V'shalcha Chacham sent over for the craftsmen in Alexandria, in Egypt. That was the center of all arts and civilizations. That's where the experts were. They brought these craftsmen, Alexander from Egypt. They fixed it up with some, mending, and it affected the sound. It no longer sounded as good as before. So they removed the patch. Perhaps it was low quality copper or whatever it is. It interfered with the sound. Once they got rid of it, and it regained its former glory. Another story with a machteshes, with this mortar, which was used to crush the besamim, of copper. Okay, they would use it to crush the besamim. And interestingly, Rashi says they would need sound to produce the besamim. Rashi brings a price and increases. That the fellow who would crush would say, Heitev, Haddei, Haddei, Keitev. Some of them say it by davening, right? It's because the koil, Shakol Yafel Absamim. Maybe the sound waves or whatever, the word, the sound has a good effect enhances the psamim. Makes it smell good. So the clanging sound, this unique clanging sound and this unique mortar did a great job in producing good quality besamim for the Mikdash. And Ispagma, what happened was it got a hole. They view Umanin, Alexander imported these fixer men, to fix it up. It didn't have the same ring. It wouldn't do the same job as it did. Not lost tikuna, they removed the patch, and it regained its former status. Elush nekelim, so these two utensils, nishtairu migdash rishon. Right, so in fact, these are the kelim that were holdovers from Migdash Rishon, from way back from the Mishkan. And even though with a spagmu they were slightly damaged, but you couldn't fix them. As we just learned, you couldn't repair them, you couldn't fix them up, because as soon as they tried, it just made it worse. David, on which David HaMelech refers to in the pasuk, Nachoshes Memurat, Nachoshes Moruk. So the Kalim in the he's talking about the Kalim in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, but the same would apply to these Kalim that were done in the Mishkan, Moshe Rabbeinu's time. Nechoshes Memurat, very thin, high quality copper. Nechoshes Memuruk, shiny, glancing. And likewise, Ezra, when he came up from Golos by the second bayis and brought along these Kalim, Balei Mo'ema, which it says, Klei Nechoshes, Mutzav, Shnayim, Chamudois, Kazahav. So he's equating them to gold. In what way? Rav has one way, Shmuel has a different way. Chadam one said, Kol echad ve'echad shakul k'shnayim shel zahav. So it says Shnayim, right? Then it says Kazav. Each one of these Kalim was worth like twice gold. So basically, each one was worth double of itself in gold. Okay, so each one was shakol k'shnayim shel zahav. Each one was worth like 2 gold. V'chadam, one says no, not that much. Shneim shkulin k'ech shel zahav. Both together were as valuable as 1 gold. So each one was worth like half a vessel of gold. Still pretty unique if it's merely made of copper. That's how special it was. Tani Rav Yosef, he has the pshat like the second way. Shneim shekulim k'ech shel zahav. So according to his brayso, it was like the second way. They both, in total, sum total like 1 of gold. Tani Ras Naime, he has a different pshat in the pasuk. He says when it says shnayim, it means that they had substitute. They made backups. Tani Ras Naime shneim hayu. They had backups as well, just in case. Shnema shnayim says shnayim like shnayim instead of reading shnayim al shneim. So they made duplicates just in case. Tanya Rabbi Shimon Rabban Shimon Lil Omer. Here's another example of trying to fix something, and better that you don't fix it, just leave it the way it is. In fact, there was a Shiloach, the famous Shiloach spring that was running, below Yerushalayim, and it had a very, small flow. Shiloach Chayim Mekalech Mayim would flow, fresh water, big Iser. Iser is a small coin. That's how wide the flow. It was a very small flow. Tziva HaMelech V'Chivu. It's just Rabbi Meimav, the king wanted to increase its flow, so he told him to, enlarge the hole so that we have a bigger flow. But his smart one actually had the opposite effect. It slowed down the flow. Too. So they shrunk it again to its old size, and now shooting. And now it's flowing even stronger, right? So it went back to its earlier flow. So all these stories, with their sort of interference, their attempt to repair and to improve, actually had the reverse effect, is in fulfillment of the pasuk, which teaches us a tremendous lesson in life. Leave it up to Hashem. Not always is your human interference appreciated. Let it flow. Let it go. Hashem knows best. Wise man should not be praise himself with his wisdom. Or the strong man with his strength. And the pasuk continues, nor should the usher be proud of his wealth, right? Be proud of your connection to Hashem, your haskel v'idei oisi, your knowledge of Hashem, your vekas b'Hashem, who's the source of all blessing. Likewise, over here says Rashi, the kelim were done piruch hakodesh, right? Akol b'chsav miyad Hashem alay hiskel kol melechas hatavnis. Don't tinker. Rab Shimon Lil Omer, in a similar fashion, he would tell us there was this thing called har davlim, this bell. And there's a gersa lo yehoyim. They did not have it as part of the instruments. It wasn't part of the band. Maya har dvalim. What is that? Mabaya tavla gur gedana. That's the bell. They wouldn't use a bell. They change it to of, as a heavy sound. The bell has a heavy it's going to just confuse, mix up the right. It's going to have that heaviness, that reverberation. That's going to disrupt the quality of the band. So it was left out of the lineup. Amar Rava Bar Shila Mar Bnasa Mashmo. What did they have in the orchestra? Magrefa. There was this thing called a magrefa, and according to Rashi, it's the rake used to remove the deshen off the mizbeach, the ashes. And Taisa says, no, it can't be. It's an instrument. So it was a different type of. It was called magrefa, but it was a different utensil. And what was unique about it? We turn to the next summit. Asar nekavim hayuba. So this magrefa had 10 openings into which they would insert a kana, a cylinder, like a reed, right? So it was like a pipe with a bunch of holes into which they would insert reeds. And each reed was like a flute on its own. Each reed had its own holes. Moitzi asar min hazem would produce 10 notes. So in total, you have 100. Nimtzes kula. Moitzi mea min hazem. So the whole instrument would produce 100 notes. Masi satan in the Brisa, it's presented as tenfold. He amma, v'gavoya amma. It in itself, the body of the instrument was an amma long and amma high. V'kate yitzemen, and this sort of pipe protrudes. V'asar nekavim hayuba, in which they had 10 holes. And they would insert the mini pipes into that big pipe. So 10 pipes into that thing. Each one of these sort of flutes had the ability to produce 100 notes of its own. So 10 times 100 is 1,000. Nimtzes, kula, so you have 1,000 notes in total. Pretty impressive, piano, half notes and quarter notes. To remember who said what. Masnisa, generally the Mishnah, the Brisa, speaks sometimes in elaborate, exaggerating form, guzma, hence the grand number of 1,000, which perhaps was just some expression. It just means that there were lots of notes coming from that instrument. Very grand piano. Okay, so in conclusion, we learned about the tkiyos in the Mikdash. According to some, I said it was a tkiyah, true and tkiyah. According to some, it's one mitzvah. That's a Reader's Shita. According to Rabbanan, it's 3 different mitzvahs. Hence the disparity in counts. The number of tkiyos that we had in the Mikdash, which according to the Mishnah, at a minimum is 21, maximum 48. According to Rabbi, it gets cut down by 2/3, but it's really one and the same. The point. He described the various instruments, the navalim and the chalil, right? The chalil was something unique that was introduced during special occasions, times of Yom Tov, times of Hallel, which according to Rabbi Yechanan's count is 18 days a year, or in Chutz La'aretz it's 21 days. We explained the prerequisites for Hallel being recited in full, a Moyed, a Yom Tov, Chalukim Karban Asayim, as well as during celebrations of Nisim. We spoke about this unique instrument from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, which had to be left as is, such as the Machteshes and the Tzaltzal and the Mei Shaleach. All the best to you and Atzlach.